Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Backlot Banter movie review. My name is Tucker Hazel, and I'm, of course, joined by my co-host, who is just an absolute beast, Tanner Dykstra, and today we are here to talk about Beast, Idris Elba's new jungle thriller lion movie. He's out there, he's surviving, and you know what? Boy, things don't go well for him. But if you want to talk to us about Beast, or anything else at all, plenty of movies to talk about, join our Discord. That link is in the top description, and while you're down there, please join our Discord, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and ring the bell because we are doing a lot of movie reviews, and you're not going to want to miss them. There's a huge chunk coming up. I'm actually kind of excited. There's a lot of trailers I'm excited for today. But Beast, we were not anticipating this movie. It was just on our list, and now we've seen it. Tanner Dykstra, high-level thoughts on Beast?
Tucker, I didn't much care for Beast, and it doesn't seem that anyone else who has seen it cares for it either. Beast is a bit of a strange movie. Like, they take some strange creative choices with this, but if you parse through all of those, it's kind of just like your run-of-the-mill, like, creature feature monster movie, but, you know, not even in the upper echelon of those. Maybe in the middle range. Maybe even the lower range.
Here's the thing. I think it straddles a really uncomfortable line, because creature feature monster movies are prevalent. You know, we've been seeing them all since the 1950s when there was Atomic Age, all sorts of space monsters. You've got horror movies and slashers in the 80s, and you know there's a handful of them that stick around today. But largely, the genre has died off, and I think that's okay, because I think there's two lines where that genre succeeds, which is in high budget, high concept something like Alien or Predator, or down to the brass tacks, super low budget. We're going back to 1950s guy in a rubber suit. I think those two have their appeal. But Beast straddles an uncomfortable middle line where it has good production value. It has good cinematography for the most part. It has two big-name actors in the leading roles. And it looks like a production with a studio behind it. But then it fails creatively in so many other departments, with especially the screenplay and the dialogue and and frankly, some of the acting as well, to where I was just pulled out of this. And while I was sitting next to my dad watching this in the theater, just kind of laughing and cringing at things that weren't supposed to be laughed and cringed at, and I came away just completely underwhelmed and frankly disappointed by Beast, because I think if you had changed a few things and focused in a few areas, I think this movie could have been made for less and been significantly more distinct. But as it stands, this movie has basically nothing going for it.
Yeah, I thought I had, while watching Beast is a movie that begs the question, what if you took Jurassic Park, took out all the cool dinosaurs and everything, and you only set it in the part where they're in the car at the beginning when the T-Rex attacks?
Oh, great point.
And that, on concept, that sounds great, but as you said, Tucker, you're right. It's the screenplay that fails this movie. It's the acting that fails this movie. Dare I say, it's even the direction that fails this movie. Because that's what I want to talk about here. And this was not sort of telegraphed in the marketing at all. This movie loves its long takes. It's one takes. The first three shot sequences of this are all a long take.
Yeah.
And here's what I will say about that. Because long takes are usually a novelty. You know, they usually have some sort of larger meaning behind them. Like if you take a look at like a Birdman or something like that, it is a creative distinction why they are making it look like one long take. At their worst, they are just a novelty of the director saying, hey, look what I can do. And if this film just did that towards the end, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
But what this film does is it starts off with long takes, and it's long takes all the way through. And it just cheapens it for me. Because if you want to extend out the tension of like this lion stalking them, like in the last 15 minutes, spoilers, I guess, the lion stalks them.
Yeah, no, that does that for most of the movie. So.
Exactly, yeah. But that's what I thought it was going to be. Like the last 15 minutes when when you can like kind of see it creeping around in the background and stuff like that. That's why the long take should be used in this movie. But it cheapens it if at the beginning of the movie we're doing long takes where our like characters are moving into a house.
Yeah.
Like, why are we doing that? Other than the director likes doing them, and overall, like I said, cheapens the idea of it in this film.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the only it's frankly the only distinct artistic decision this film has going for it. Is a lot of it is long takes, and I think most of them are done well. Like there's shots that are stitched together to make it seem like it's one long take, and I never really felt those. And it does give you a good sense of the area around where our characters are, in the jungle, in the house, wherever it happens to be. And I think I'm glad they did that because it was distinct. But I do think you're right. It lessened the tension because I was always like, yeah, this is another long take. I'm used to this by now. It doesn't feel like, oh, now I'm a little bit uncomfortable that they're not cutting.
Right.
But I do want to talk a little bit about the acting, the dialogue, and the screenplay. Of course, those are three big things, big parts of a movie. But I think that those are the long take thing didn't bother me as much as it bothered you. But I think what I just mentioned, those things are easily the weakest aspect of this film. The screenplay is incredibly repetitive, and of course, that is somewhat necessary for a survival movie being put in increasingly tension-filled scenarios, but it never felt like it built to increasingly tension-filled scenarios. It was just pretty much same level tension-filled scenarios across the entire movie, and characters doing similar things. Getting out of the car, making a dumb decision, not talking to someone in a proper way, and doing that on a loop until inevitably the movie just kind of ends and fades to black in a really strange and unsatisfying way. And that is especially apparent when combined with the dialogue, which, as I was mentioning, is a lot of dumb decisions. There's a lot of weird sort of flubbed lines in moments where I didn't feel like Charlton Copley and Idris Elba, two very competent actors, were putting in their best work. And because of that, it was just scene after scene of me being like, man, I feel like I've seen this before. Oh, this line isn't working. Why'd they read it that way? And then just on to the next one.
Yeah, I agree, Tucker. Idris Elba seems to be struggling with his accent. For
what accent was it supposed to be? American.
It fluctuated between like him like edging on a British accent to doing American to doing like a New York accent, which is where he's supposed to be from in the movie, but he was born in Africa, I think. So maybe it was supposed to be some of that as well. It's confusing. As he said, Idris Elba and Charlton Copley are not putting in 100% in this movie. And you can feel it, like you said, in the dialogue. Like, Charlton Copley is, like, ending all of his lines with, like, bro. He's like, I don't think I'm gonna make it, bro. I don't think I'm gonna make it. Idris Elba's daughters are also not very good, and I think it comes. I'm gonna tie this back to my complaint about the long takes, because something I noticed is when we're in the car, and we're doing a conversation between our three characters, but maybe only two characters they're having an argument, which is something that Idris Elba and his oldest daughter do quite a bit. That gets dropped ultimately. Yes. We're doing a wide where all three characters are in the frame because we can't cut back and forth because we're doing long takes.
Yeah.
That leaves a character in the middle just to kind of like, huh? Oh, what? Oh, what?
Sure.
And when you have some inexperienced actresses like you have here, they can't sell that, and it even falls on Idris Elba and Charlton Copley, two very experienced actors. When you're doing, I think the long takes just serve to further undercut the performances and the writing here.
Yeah, because it's a lot harder to do reactions consistently through a 90-second shot or a 60-second shot or a 30-second shot, as opposed to, hey, let's do that face again. So we can use an insert shot.
You can't cut it in. Yeah, you can't cut it in at all. No. Yeah.
The only other thing that I really think this movie deserves to be talked about is, I would say a spoiler, but I think it doesn't really matter because you pretty much know what's going to happen. He's going to survive. I didn't expect any twists. And I think, frankly, the fact that the screenplay doesn't take any risks that take it to another level is part of another reason why it ends up feeling so samey and bland. But is that Idris Elba's character is a doctor.
Yes.
And he's not very experienced in the jungle, which, it's a fine way to put someone who's not necessarily supposed to be in this scenario, in a tension-filled scenario. But it means that he straddles a weird line between Idris Elba being like a muscular action hero kind of guy, but then the character doesn't really quite know how to handle these situations, but then he's confident, but it makes it feel really weird. And then when he's put into scenarios against a lion, and he does great, and he's getting slashed and bitten and not even really reacting. This man has the highest defense stat I've ever experienced in a film. it really took me out of the film. And I was sitting next to my dad, as I said in this movie, and he was complaining throughout because he was having large issues with the film, similar to what we've been mentioning. But every time that would happen, he's like, what was even the point of that? Because his leg is hurt for most of this movie, and that almost never impacts the story.
No, absolutely not. No, Tucker, you bring up him getting slashed and bitten and clawed and stuff like that. I mean, at the end when he has his big, men with knife versus lion, as we see in the trailer, I was just counting like he'd be dead right there. Okay, just bit the back of his neck. Absolutely dead. He's absolutely dead. Oh, it's clawing his back. Absolutely dead right there. And it takes you out, just like you said. Just a really, really weak screenplay. Even like throwaway lines in here. I'm like, do we need that line? Do we need, can we pump up this dialogue a little bit?
Absolutely true. I do think that the emotional core of this film, which is the family dynamic, is undersold by half-baked performances, but especially by that screenplay. Because I feel like these actors are not given enough to work with. And it maybe should have even been given less to work with, because maybe we didn't need as much setup and payoff of emotional connection between these characters who frankly aren't very deep or interesting. And so that means a lot of the beginning of the movie kind of feels like it drags. And that frankly is pervasive throughout this entire runtime of this film. I mean, it's probably an 85-minute film without credits. And it feels way longer than that because it's so repetitive and because the characters are making decisions. I'm like, man, I would not do that. Yeah, the more I talk about this movie, the more I'm disappointed in it. The one thing that I do pretty much categorically want to praise this movie on is the production design. I think the sets are great. There's a lot of interesting topography there's this one tree with bones hanging down from it and running through African villages with fences made of sticks and things like that. That all looks great. And frankly, it feels like that's where a lot of the effort of this film went.
And I guess the lion looks pretty solid throughout. There's some shoddiness with shadows and stuff like that. He's like, that's not really there. Or when people are like wrestling with it, or like especially with Charlton Copley and his like two
buddy lions.
Friendly lions at the beginning. He's like, Charlton Copley is not touching anything on set.
Frankly, I don't think that was Charlton Copley. I think it was a CGI Charlton Copley wrapped around these two lions. It was really awkward. But I do think the lion is fine. I think it really could have been better. I think it was good in terms of texture work. Like, it looks like a very real lion, but its movements are very slow and weird in certain shots. And so when that part of the movie, which frankly is what's selling it, you're selling it on the line, you're selling it on the tension, you're selling it on Idris Elba, and none of those aspects are hitting the marks that frankly they should and they could and should. This movie fails pretty much categorically for me. So for my score, I've dropped a lot through reviewing this with you, and I'm going to give it a 3.2.
Yeah, I'll go with a 4.3. How about that?
Yeah, very weak movie all around. But okay way to waste 2 hours if you want to just turn off your brain, I guess.
I guess so.
But that's a poor endorsement.
There's better things to go turn off your brain to.
There's a lot of movies out right now.
And there's going to be more coming out soon, isn't that right, Tucker?
Yes, there is. And if you want to talk to us about those movies, again, join our Discord, subscribe to our channel to see our reviews of all those movies, and we will see you guys when we review those movies.
Perfect. Did you know Riley Keough was in this?
What?
As Savannah. Do you remember a character named Savannah? A white woman named Savannah. Is that ringing any bells?
There was a white woman in this movie?
According to the Beast cast list, there is.
There's a white woman in that movie?
No fucking way.